In London, Sabastian Sawe became the first human to officially run a marathon under 2 hours. 1 hour, 59 minutes, 30 seconds. 11 seconds behind him on his debut marathon, Yomif Kejelcha, also under 2 hours. The third place finisher broke the previous world record by 7 seconds and didn't even make the podium narrative. Something happened in London, and we're going to be unpacking it for years. But here's the one number from Saul's race that I want to start with today, because it changes the conversation about endurance fueling completely. 115. That's how many grams of carbohydrates per hour he ate during the race for 2 hours, without his stomach blowing up. So today we're going to talk about why that number matters and why it's absolutely is not a number for everyone. Let's get into it. Hey, I'm Alessia Mossali. I'm a medical doctor and endurance coach. I work in sport performance and physiology with a focus on female endurance athletes because women's physiology has been ignored in sport science for way too long. This is Pedal Power Lab. Here we take performance science, the real peer-review kind, and we make it usable. No supplements to sell, no influencer shortcuts, just the physiology behind the training explained in plain language so you can make better decisions every time you clip in. Today, we're talking about carbohydrates during exercise, how much, what kind, and why one of the most important variables in your fueling plan is not on any package label. It's inside your gut. Let's go. If you started cycling or running 15 years ago, the standard advice was something like 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrates per hour. That was the consensus. Then it became 60 to 90, then 90 to 120. Today, professional cycling and now in marathon running, athletes are openly fueled at 100 grams an hour and above. The American marathoner Joe Klecker reportedly took 175 grams per hour at New York last fall. The numbers keep climbing. Now, 2 questions. First, is this just hype, the latest performance fad, or is it something real driving the change? And second, if the athletes can do it, can you? Should you? The honest answer is that the science behind the higher number is sound. There's a physiological logic to why an athlete can absorb 100 grams an hour and not just 60, but that science only applies if a few specific conditions are met. And if you copy the numbers without copying the condition, you don't get a faster ride. You get a stomach disaster 40 kilometers from home. So let's look at what actually is happening. To understand why the carb numbers have changed, we need to understand a simple physiological reality. Your body has a limited storage tank for carbohydrate. Roughly speaking, between muscle and liver, a well-trained athlete stores around 2,000 calories of glycogen. That sounds like a lot. It isn't. A marathon pace or a hard tempo on the bike, you can burn through about 1,000 calories an hour. So if you're going hard for 90 minutes, you're basically empty. After that, your blood sugar drops, your brain panics, and your legs feel concrete. A classic punk. So the obvious solution is eat more during the race. And the obvious question is, how much can you actually use? Here's where the most important paper of the last 25 years on these topics came in. Asker Jokendrop in 2014 consolidated decades of research in showing that there's a hard biological ceiling on how much glucose your gut can absorb per hour from a single sugar source. That ceiling is about 60 grams. Why? Because glucose travels into your bloodstream to one specific intestinal transporter. It's called SGLT1. And SGLT1 has a maximum throughput. Eat more glucose than that per hour and the excess just sits in your gut, fermenting, bloating, and eventually hurting. 60 grams per hour was the worst recommendation for decades because of that ceiling. Then someone asked, what if we use a different sugar? And here's the thing, fructose, the sugar in fruit. It doesn't use SGT1, it uses a different transporter called GLUT5. Different door, different lane, both open at the same time, and your absorption capacity essentially doubles. This is what's called multiple transportable carbohydrates. Glucose plus fructose in a roughly 2-to-1 ratio. That combination is what allows trained athletes to hit 90, 100, even 120 grams per hour. And it's not magic, it's biochemistry. But there's still a catch. Even with multiple transportable carbs, Your gut has to be trained to handle that volume of fluid and sugar. This is what the elite teams call gut training. Weeks or months of progressively high intakes during works out, so the gut adapts and the absorption capacity ramps up. Sawe's nutrition team spent 12 months on this. 12 months. They flew to Kenya 6 times. They ran isotope tracer study to measure exactly how much exogenous carbohydrate Sawe could oxidize. They built a hydrogel formula that lets the carbs pass through the stomach without sloshing of distress. 115 grams an hour was the output. 12 months of preparation was the input. So here's the practical map. For rides under an hour, you don't need much. Even rising your mouth with a carb drink can give a small performance boost through brain receptors, no swallowing required. For 1 to 2 hours, around 30 grams an hour, 2 to 3 hours, around 60 grams, beyond 2.5 hours, and especially a high intensity, 90 grams an hour with a glucose-fructose mix. Anything above that enters in the territory of elite, gut-trained athletes using specialized formulations like hydrogels Sawe use. The numbers exist, they're real. There's also not a starting point for most of us. So let me give you the picture I use with my athletes. Imagine your gut is a supermarket. The food is on the shelves. There's the carb in your bottle. The customer is in your bloodstream, waiting outside, hungry. To get the food out of the store and into the customer, the food has to pass through the checkout line. There's your intestinal transporter. Now, if your store has only one checkout open, the glucose checkout at SGLT1, there's no matter how much food is on the shelves. The speed at which customer gets served is capped, 60 grams per hour. Doesn't matter if you stuff the cart higher. The line is what it is. So if you eat more than 60 grams of pure glucose, the food just piles up on the convoy belt. That's your gut. That's the cramping, that's the bloating. Now, imagine you open a second checkout. The fructose checkout, the GLUT5. Suddenly, 2 lines are running in parallel. Customers move twice as fast. The bottlenecks shift. The store can move 90, 100, 120 grams an hour without piling anything up. If everyone knows which line to go in. That's what a glucose-fructose drink is. 2 checkouts running, same store, different doors. And the gut training piece? That's like training the cashiers. The transporters themselves, the proteins on the gut wall, actually upregulate when you expose them repeatedly to the substrate. The gut adapts. The cashiers get faster. The lines get longer and they don't back up. After 12 months of training, Sawe's gut wasn't the same gut he started with. It was a high throughput supermarket built specifically for one race. Same logic if you even tried to eat a big meal before a hard workout and felt it sitting like a brick. Different food, different door. Your body wasn't ready. So train the door and the food moves. So what do you do with all this Sunday morning before your long ride? 3 rules. Rule 1, do not start with 150 grams an hour. I cannot stress this enough. The number you saw on Instagram, the number Sawe ate, it's the result of a year of preparation, professional support, and a stomach trained like an athletic muscle. If you copy the number without copying the preparation, what you're going to feel is not so split. It's a gastrointestinal distress. Start where you are. If you're currently riding on water and a banana, 30 grams an hour isn't a step. So if you're currently riding on water and a banana, 30 grams an hour is a step up. From 30, you build to 60. From 60, you slowly to 90 with a glucose-fructose mix. The progression is not optional. Rule 2, use multiple transportable carbohydrates whenever you go above 60 grams per hour. Look at all the ingredients on your gel, your bar, your drink. If it says only maltodextrin or only glucose, you're using 1 checkout. If it says glucose and fructose, ideally in a roughly 2 to 1 ratio, you're using 2. For long, hard session, this is the difference between absorbing and not absorbing. Rule 3, and this is the one I want you to actually internalize. The right number for you is not the number that worked for someone else. Here's a paper from last year, Pretel Berver and colleagues working with 17 well-trained cyclists. They put one group on a periodized carb protocol, same session low, same session high, and the other group on the consistent high carbohydrates diet. 5 weeks of training. And the result? Both groups improved. Neither protocol was clearly better than the other. What that tells us is that for trained cyclists, high carbohydrate availability is broadly favorable, and the elaborate periodization schemes are not the magic bullet some influencers make them out to be. The big variable isn't the protocol. The big variable is you, your oxidation capacity, your gut tolerance, and your training context. And here's where I'll be honest with you. Before I prescribe a carb intake to one of my athletes I work with, I run a metabolic test. I want to see what their substrate utilization actually looks like across intensities, how much carbohydrates they are burning at threshold, where their fat oxidation peaks, what their lactate response is, because the right grams per hour is downstream of all of that. 150 grams might be perfect for Sawe. It might be too much for you, or too little, or widely missteamed. The number on the package label is information. The number that's right for you, the number that's right for your body is a finding. And a finding comes from measurement, not from copying. One quick note for my female athletes, because I know you're listening. The vast majority of fueling research, including most of what I just described, was done on men. The substrate utilization curves, the gut adaptation timelines, the impact of menstrual cycle phases on carbohydrate oxidation, all of this is significantly less studied in women. The principles still apply, the exact number may not. So I promise you I'll dedicate a full episode to female-specific fuel later. Now there's a question that's starting to get serious attention in the lab and that I found genuinely exciting. We'll talk about glucose, we talk about fructose, two doors in the bloodstream, two fuels for the working muscle. But in a previous episode, we established something important. Lactate is also a fuel, not a waste product, a fuel. Your heart drinks it, your slow-twitch fibers drinks it, your brain drinks it. So the next question naturally is, what would happen if we ingest lactate too? Could we open a third door and a third fuel during the race itself? It's a question researchers are now asking seriously, and we'll go deep on exogenous lactate in a next episode. And if you missed the episode on lactate as a fuel, which was a previous one, the next conversation only makes sense if you're seeing it. So 3 things to take home with you. 1, glycogen runs out. Past 90 minutes of intense work, you have to fuel. The question stops being whether and start being how much. 2, above 60 grams per hour, you need a multiple transportable carbohydrates, glucose plus fructose, 2 doors instead of 1. And 3, headline number from the elites is a result, not a starting point. The right intake for you comes from testing your system, not copying someone else's race plan. If this change you're thinking about your next long ride or your next race, subscribe to the channel. If you want to go deeper, if you want a fueling strategy and a training plan built around your physiology, your gut, your hormonal context, your goals, I work one-on-one with cyclists and triathletes as a coach and physiologist. The metabolic testing I mentioned today is part of that work. Links in the description, and on Instagram, I'm Pedal Power Lab. And that's where the daily breakdown live in shorter form. Train smart and fuel smarter. If something here clicked for you, let me know in the comments. And if you want more of this, subscribe and turn on the bell. That's how you'll catch up the next one.